I'm Sarah Russell.
I'm J.Q. Walker.
Mint, and we are
The Neurodivergent Report, a research-based podcast by and for neurodivergent brains.
In each episode, we'll explore topics relating to neurodiversity and coping strategies by reviewing the literature and discussing current topics.
We will also have interview episodes where we sit down with experts in the field and listeners like you, with the hope that together we can all learn to heal in community.
However you are able to engage, thank you for being here.
I did like a little road trip to Virginia, from Connecticut to Virginia. And so that was like an 8-hour, 12-hour drive. Yeah. So, being in the car and like all of the stress of that, and then eating chips and soda and coffee for that amount of time.
Yes.
Like staying up all night. Those are all things that don't make your stomach feel good. So I actually came back. I was not, always struggle with like symptoms of some kind. And so I wasn't surprised, but I was surprised to see everybody else coming back from traveling being like, yeah, I have a tummy ache.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what?
I think in our day lives, it's so hard to be healthy, stay healthy. And so imagine when you're traveling. And it's so frustrating because I remember there's this one time where I made salmon a vital ingredient in at least one of my meals for a week, and I felt so good. I wish I have the energy to sustain that. But yeah, but that's why we have Annika. We have no pressure, Annika, but you have to help us figure this out.
Straighten us out and tell us how to get rid of our tummy aches. It's super simple,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
That's
Totally
the most
fine.
simple thing ever.
But first, we want to introduce everyone to you. So tell us
Yeah.
who you are.
So my name's Annika. I'm an ADHD nutrition research expert, meaning I have spent basically my entire professional academic life studying ADHD nutrition and communicating that to everybody who I can talk to. And I do that online because that's the easiest way to get to people, right?
Mhm.
So in the last year, I have created what's called the Nutrimind Lab, which is what we're talking about there. And that is my business, my platform where I can share all this research through my website, through the Patreon, through ebooks, Instagram, social media. It's my life now.
Your website is so aesthetically pleasing, other than the fact that it has important information, which is really important, but very aesthetically pleasing. Highly recommend everyone to check all of her links. They're so amazing, very well written, and made very simple for the layman. So that's really, really
exactly
cool.
my goal. I want to have all of this information in an easily digestible way because honestly, the science is very dense. And my brain even hurts reading a lot of it. And I do it almost every single day, right? But I want you to be able to know what it says too.
I was going to say digestible. No pun intended. That's great. Sarah?
Yeah, this is awesome. We're so lucky to have you here. I am just curious sort of where you're located, where you live.
So I'm in the States and more specifically Minnesota. I love the Midwest. Love it so much. The people here are amazing. So
I think you're
recommend
the
moving
first
to Minnesota.
Minnesotan on the show, possibly even the first Midwesterner. I don't know. Actually, no, Jamie's from Illinois, so she probably identifies.
Oh, we'll count that as Midwest.
Yeah.
I lived in Chicago for 6 months. Does that count? I mean, I completely adopted the Midwest character when I was there, though. I know it doesn't count.
No, Chicago's.
It's different. Yeah, but it's beautiful. I loved it. Shout out to Chicago. They're amazing. So Minnesota, it was the first, actually, no, it wasn't the first, but one of the first states that I visited, actually. And the people there were so nice. I really loved it. I loved that it was my introduction to the States.
That's amazing. No, yep, like I said, I love Minnesota. I love all of their policies. They have the free lunch for children, which is not everywhere in the States yet. So like they care about people.
That is amazing. I wonder why news like this are not readily available and spread out more. We just tend to know the negatives more than amazing policies. I'm sure that Minnesota has been, and other states maybe that have been promoting that. I wish it was
Yeah.
celebrated
Another
more.
one that is top of mind is Massachusetts just imposed a new tax on like billionaires or millionaires or something, and it's already brought in like double the revenue that they expected from it. And they're using that money specifically for things like education and infrastructure, you know, as society intended it.
Yeah.
That's
Anyway,
amazing. So it's like helping everybody.
that's kind of my whole deal, which is why we have this podcast, the Neurodivergent Report. It's all about like helping different kinds of people and different kinds of brains and bodies like feel better and empowering us all with the information that we need to do that. So yeah, I'm so glad that you're here. We totally have like aligned missions, and I'm just wondering, because I know that I have a very personal like connection, like there's a reason why I'm doing this podcast and I'm doing all of this work, and I'm just wondering if you have a very similar like I don't
What's
know how
the
to phrase it,
catalyst?
but like
What's your
yeah, sort of like
passion?
yeah, what's your dog in the race? Like why are you so like why is this your thing, I guess?
Honestly, there's a lot of reasons. The main reason is because it was my special interest back in college when I was doing my master's degree. This was before I even knew I had ADHD. I was like, you know what I want to study, what I want to concentrate in? ADHD and nutrition and IBS and what all this means together. So this was
It's
yeah,
amazing
before I
how
even
the
knew it.
body knows before we know. It's just amazing.
Yeah, it really is. And so
Friend,
yeah, that was my main catalyst, I guess. And then I ended up losing my job when I was working in home to help people who have serious and persistent mental health illnesses. Essentially, what that job was, I was helping them I was teaching them skills to help them live better lives in accordance with their disability. But there wasn't enough state funding to continue, so they cut my position. But throughout it, I realized that I was the most interested in the people who had ADHD, and I was the best at getting those outcomes with those people because I was just basically teaching them all the skills that I learned for myself.
yeah.
So that should have also been a sign, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Better late than never.
Right. But
But
in
that's such an
that,
interesting story.
I really realized that I enjoyed helping people learn how to eat and how to work through the hardships that come with food. And honestly, one of the coolest stories that I have with that is I was able to help a mom decrease her medication need. She was on the highest dose and it was really hard for her to function. But when we worked on her nutrition, she didn't need to have as much medication, which was crazy because she was trying to get more increases, but she couldn't because she was at the highest dose. And so that's, I think, more of that catalyst story of this works. We can help people.
Wow. This is amazing. I mean, my aunt is a neurologist, and she's always told me to focus on nutrition. It's the future. I mean, it's not just the future; it's the past and it's the present. Like nutrition is always going to be there, and how it interferes with medications. And it just gave me goosebumps what you just said, because that's the embodiment of what I hope to do in the future, as hopefully a psychiatrist, to have a more holistic approach. So I thank you so much for doing this, because one of the things that Sarah taught me is that when it comes to poverty, when it comes to not having privilege, one of the things that you don't have access to is resources. It's not easy for me to know what are the things that I need to do to get better. And so having you here to hopefully expand the knowledge and help people know more what they need to do, especially people who are neurodivergent, which I'm sure have a lot of obstacles.
Taking that right there. So obviously the people I worked with, maybe not obviously if you haven't worked in that field, but the people I worked with are in poverty. They are like, they don't have money. And we were still able to get that result. You don't have to be crazy amazing at food to improve your ADHD using nutrition. You can do it even if you don't have a lot of money, because the foundations that I'm sure we'll talk about
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're
They are
segueing
elitist.
so hard, but I'm gonna like stop us because I'm just personally curious how you got diagnosed with ADHD. It sounds like it happened
Mm.
like obviously much later, and I'm wondering also if you're like maybe an attentive type. Anyway,
That is a good question. So my diagnosis journey started actually this year in January. I I suspected it probably almost last year around this time, and it just kept getting worse and worse as I was trying to run a business because all my skills weren't working because there wasn't somebody to tell me, hey, these are the exact deadlines. And I had to be my own person. And then I also got burned out so quickly. And that's hard. So
Yeah.
that was where I was like, you know what? Maybe I do actually. A lot of my family members have it. And so, dug a lot more into it, figured out I do fit a lot of these profiles. And then I got a doctor appointment. They referred me to a nurse practitioner. They took a look at my stuff and then were like, I can only diagnose ADHD. You have a lot of other things going on. We don't know for sure. So that was back in
Oh.
January, right? Yeah. So it was a little frustrating because I was like, I just want to function. I just want medication because I've done all these things. My diet is the best it can be because I know all the research, right?
Yeah.
I am
Exactly.
exercising. I have a safe community. I have people. I sleep very well. So all of the factors that are supposed to help your ADHD that you can sort of control, I was doing what I could do. And I still was not able to function. I mean, I can function. Obviously, I'm functioning, but
But easily,
But at
which
what
is what we
cost?
talk about. And at what cost? Exactly. I think that's a part of the gaslighting that we do to ourselves is like, I
You
can
must be
function.
so
Yeah, but
intelligent also to be so highly
yeah,
compensating. And yeah, the person evaluating you obviously was able to see like more, which is great that they didn't just like
yeah,
slap a label on and like whatever, but at the same time it is totally frustrating because yeah, it's
it
like you
is.
were expecting like movement and now you're like on another waiting list, I'm sure.
Yep. So I got put on a waiting list. Exactly what you said
Did
there for a
did they
full
not
neuropsych
offer you
eval.
any option for medication in the meantime?
No. So they were worried that there's some ASD or sensory sensitivity
Mm-hmm.
that could potentially interact somehow. And I was like, but like if I'm
We
yeah,
actually talked
ADHD,
about this um, on the podcast with our other co-host. Um, some of us are so highly sensory, like we receive so much sensory input that the side effects from the medication actually makes us like it's not a good thing.
mm,
Sort of like maybe the heart rate goes up too much, or it's just like I remember saying I feel like I have ants in my blood. Um, so I stopped stimulants because like they never personally made me less forgetful. They just made me find stuff really fast. Um, so I understand why they're concerned about like your sensory experience because yeah,
oh,
you
that's
just
it's a
so
want to be
fascinating.
comfortable.
on the other hand, like my experience is the first time I took it, all the white noise that I didn't know existed in my brain just went all
Yeah,
silent. And I was
some
like,
people are like
oh,
It's
that.
amazing.
what is that?
Yes, that is what
Um,
I hope to experience one day. But yeah, it's
Inshallah,
fascinating.
inshallah. Hopefully, that's what you get. And thank you for being so vulnerable with us, especially that it's ongoing. And there's one thing, though, that's good about it, though it sucks now, is that this person realized that comorbidity or the existence of other disorders is the baseline. This is what we talk about most of the time, especially when it comes to women who get overlooked. They get diagnosed with depression and then it's treatment resistant and then they realize, oh, there's an underlying ADHD or an underlying something else. And so at least we hope that this gets fastened up and you get to see someone, but you have a thorough, hopefully, look at the whole thing.
Yeah,
I hope so.
I
fingers
just hope
crossed.
that's inclusive.
Yeah.
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 Anyway, I'm gonna move us along. Yeah, thank you for sharing your story. I always ask people just because I'm curious. I was also like I was 30 when I was diagnosed. But I also make the
Late
joke that, like,
diagnosed here
if you
too.
evaluate me for anything, I'll probably pass because, like, I'm, like, so neurodivergent. Um, and the assessments aren't really good at discriminating between the types of neurodivergence. They're just good at detecting whether or not you are. And that's why this diagnostic thing is really so challenging. And I'm really glad to be getting away from psychology a little bit for this podcast,
Yeah.
Annika.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to move us along. We started
Yeah.
teasing the gut-brain axis a little bit, but we didn't actually say the phrase. I know I hear it a lot in, like, nutrition articles, but I don't really know what it means. It's just sort of like they're connected, or?
Yeah, it is both like simple and complex at the same time. I'm going to try to make it more simple because if I get too complex, it's not going to make any sense, except for probably to me and the few maybe gut health dietitians out there. So the gut brain axis is essentially a term we use to describe how our gastrointestinal system communicates with our brain. So
Yeah.
there's three main ways that it communicates. The biggest one is probably the vagus nerve, and that's what a lot of people hear about. The other one is through the HPA axis. A lot of people have also heard about that. And then the third one is through inflammatory cytokines, which a lot of people maybe haven't heard about that. So basically, our body communicates with our brain a lot. But why is this? The reason is simply to make sure that our body has the appropriate nutrition, has the appropriate stress responses. And then, I mean, there's a lot more that goes into this, but it's really how can our body tell our brain what it needs?
Yeah.
And then our brain can also tell our body what it needs, but it's not as exciting, I guess.
No.
Good.
Yeah.
So you mentioned because someone would say, well, it's just going to tell me if I'm hungry or not. But you're saying, no, it's also related to stress. It's also related to, in general, our general state. What is the case usually for people with ADHD? Is there a disruption or some sort of difference in people with ADHD and their brain access?
That is a really good question. And that's actually part
Thank you.
of one. Yes, for sure. That's actually something that I'm working on submitting a publication around. So you just asked me one of my favorite questions. Yes. So what we know in the research is that we talked about the vagus nerve, that thing that connects our head to our gut. That is intact, and as well as most of our HPA axis. We don't see a lot of differences in the structure and how it is supposed to work. But for some reason, we see differences in our gut microbiome composition. We see a few differences in cortisol markers. For example, most people with ADHD actually have low cortisol, which you might hear like, we have high cortisol, but it's kind of complicated. That could be a whole different conversation.
It might be about tolerance levels, like our body's tolerance to the specific thing. But yes, I would love to have that conversation like another time. I think the most helpful thing that I ever learned about hormones and stuff like that is that hormones are the messengers to the body. Like they send messages from the brain to the body parts. Like, and that's why it's so responsible for our somatic experience.
Exactly. And so that's where we see the pathways that those hormones can communicate with our brain with, or the way the hormones in our brains can communicate with our gut. The pathways are intact, but we still see gut microbiome differences, which we shouldn't see. So that's the really curious part. So
And
that is where...
And when you say microbiome differences, do you mean the inflammatory markers?
So that is a good question. No, actually. We don't tend to see differences in inflammatory markers in people with ADHD, which is another confusing aspect of a lot of this.
Yeah.
Because you hear that ADHD is an inflammatory disease or condition or whatever. And in the body, we don't tend to see the traditional inflammatory markers when we compare them to healthy controls. We do potentially see some neuroinflammation, so inflammation in the brain. And then, like I said, some differences in our gut, but it's not the inflammation. It's more, we see differences in, I'll just explain what butyrate is. So butyrate is a short chain fatty acid. And that is something that is crucial in communicating to our brain. So what we see is, on average, people with ADHD have differences in the gut microbiota that can actually create butyrate. So we have lower levels of that. So my hypothesis here, part of it, it's a large hypothesis, okay? But part of it is that even though we have intact communication pathways, we don't have intact communication itself.
Okay.
Because our ability, like our gut's ability to connect to the brain is already impaired because we don't have, on average, say, enough of those things that help create those messengers.
I have 2 comments.
Yes.
Like 2 comments and / questions. Is this why some studies say that omega-3, EPA and DHA supplementation can help with the symptoms? And it's obviously debatable, but like, is this the reason for that?
That one is more to do with the brain and how EPA and DHA work in the brain. So those two, for anyone who doesn't know, we have 3 different types, basically 3 different types of omega-3s. ALA is the one that helps the inflammation in our body. And then EPA and DHA are the ones that help the inflammation in our brain. So it helps our brain be more connective, and it helps it translate the messages more effectively. So that is where we see more of the people with ADHD should take omega-3s. Now, with the most recent research, we don't see that it's helpful compared to placebo. My theory is that our supplements have gotten way worse over the years. And the traditional ones
innovation.
And so in the past, maybe they weren't oxidized as much, but now the supplements are probably more oxidized. I'd love to see a study that has omega-3s that have extra virgin olive oil with it, because
really good
that
researcher,
one,
by the way. The way that you're like cross-examining all the variables, that's a skill that most people don't have.
It's how our brain works, you know.
All the be like, wow, that's incredible to watch.
Like you have a brain of a researcher. It's beautiful to watch, like how this is happening in real life. Okay, so you answered a lot of my questions, and this actually explains why I'm taking omega-3 and haven't been noticing a lot of the changes. So maybe I need to find another source for that. Thank you very much.
Can I ask a selfish question?
Yes.
So there's a blood marker called an ANA, which is just a test for like inflammation and the inflammation markers in the body. And I have a very high score. And I do have other autoimmune conditions, but like all of my specialists are like, nah, that's still too high. And so my personal hypothesis is that I just have like a lot of inflammation built up in the body. And then when you said that thing about reducing inflammation,
do you
think omega-3?
Yeah, basically any nut, seed, if you eat seeds, you'll have a lot more ALA coming in.
I'm like a bird.
So yes, become a bird.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Otherwise,
seeds.
like just fish.
But I'll deal with
that.
Okay, cool. I really
Second
appreciate
comment.
that, actually. Yeah.
Yes. This could be a clip in of itself. Just eat more seeds. Annika recommends.
Become a bird. Eat seeds.
Become a bird. The second thing is we described that there's a problem with the communication. what does that lead to with ADHD? Does it have to do with the fact that sometimes we're not aware that we're hungry, but we actually are? Does it have to do with IBS? I know for a fact people with autism also have issues with their bowels. They also are more likely to develop eating disorders. Is that related in any way?
Yeah, that is also a core part of my little hypothesis here, because what I've noticed is so many people have either overactive hunger signals or underactive hunger signals, both at the same time. And we also have difficulties with
Yeah.
interoception. And I'm sure y'all have talked about interoception before, but in case
Yeah.
someone hasn't heard about it, it's the ability to understand your body's cues, essentially. And a lot of us struggle with that. And even if we work on it, we can improve, but it's not to the same level as a neurotypical. For example,
Oh,
I
yeah.
use this one a lot. I don't usually get signals to pee.
Oh,
The signal that I get is that I get a headache.
I was going to say, I have that with food because I don't feel it. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we need to learn how to develop this skill, because we can develop it. Is it going to be at the same level as a neurotypical? Probably not. But that is connected to how we are not getting those signals appropriately for some reason into our brain to act on them. Or if we are getting them, we're not hearing them until
Yeah.
it's too late, until it's screaming at you, and maybe past screaming when you haven't eaten in a while. And then you completely slump on the floor and you can't even bring a spoon to your mouth.
Yeah, the fluctuations in the in the hunger then satiety in and of itself is exhausting. So paying attention to that is really important. So in of itself, knowing this can help a lot. But can it also affect our symptoms? Can it affect other symptoms? I mean, like attention, focus, mood, even like depression and anxiety.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two aspects to this. The first is that, of course, if you're not eating, if you're not sleeping well, if you're
Yeah.
not doing these basics, your body is going to not function at its highest level. It is going to feel a little bit depressed because it thinks that it's in a famine. And you know what the best way to work through famine is? Not being hungry. So it's going to dampen those signals more, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't eat, you're not going to feel like you need to eat. And
Whoa, yeah.
I love it when light bulbs, I can see them in your face, Sarah. It's amazing.
I am a
Yeah,
very
like,
spiritual
woo!
person.
I love it. No, I love it. Yeah. So that makes sense. So it's like, it's the similar thing with cortisol. You said like it's
Because, yeah,
paradoxical, but it makes sense.
Oppositely, conversely, when your fight or flight is activated, sort of your body is like, oh, we've got to create energy in our body. Let's get that metabolism working, so it starts burning off all of like your energy,
Yeah.
because it's getting you ready to fight. So it's just,
yeah.
not
And then
super
there is that
helpful
second
messages
one
to be
too,
getting.
which is close to what you're saying here, that stress, for example, the ability to understand your stress. For a lot of people with ADHD, we think that we're handling our stress well. In
Yeah.
reality, we're not. We are taking on too much. We are thinking too much. We are putting our body into overdrive too much, but it doesn't feel like it because we're not getting those signals appropriately. And that's
Yeah.
like where we burn out so quickly.
Oh, okay. I didn't expect to be personally attacked or to feel, and feel personally attacked. That is so true. Wow. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
That's
That
why
makes
it can
sense.
be really helpful to work with a team, or like even just have like accountability buddies that are your friends. So they could be like, I'm sensing a lot of anxious energy. You might want to like take a break and come back to this in an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Action is not
My
needed
friends
right
notice that
now.
I'm anxious. Yeah, way before that I do. Like, you're absolutely right. So what we've discovered so far is that already we live in a world where being healthy and having normal gut flora is difficult. But already people with neurodiversity, especially ADHD, already have like a disadvantage when it comes to that. And that leads to exaggerating the symptoms, maybe even cause them if we don't even know what came first, right?
Yeah, and that's the really complicated part. So the differences that we see in both a lot of metabolic pathways that we've studied recently, and also those gut microbiome differences, a lot of it is indicative of chronic fight or flight, essentially, to use terms that a lot of people know nowadays online. It's not technically exactly what that is, but it's basically what it would look like if a person were in chronic stress. The hard part is that a lot of us don't feel like we're in chronic stress. And so it doesn't feel like we are. Therefore, like, oh, we're fine.
Yeah.
But our body, the studies that we have, they don't prove it, right? But they do help us understand that perhaps people with ADHD, we are more susceptible to stress.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember Sarah mentioning that once when it comes to invalidating our experiences, because we do that very well. When it comes to like childhood experiences of stress, I would often like minimize whatever I went through and be like, it's not a big deal. And then she would tell me people with neurodiversity experience trauma and stress differently. And I've always kept that in my mind. And so thank you for reaffirming that, especially for people I know who are listening who probably are undermining their experiences. Like, you handle stress differently, for sure.
You do, but your body doesn't. Like, your brain feels like it handles it really well, but your body is like, oh, what is going on here?
Yeah, I don't feel so well, and that's why we're more prone to burnout. Wow, that's pretty cool.
And we often get a little bit confused because there's like stress that we can't control, external factors happen and that creates stress in our bodies, regardless of if we decide to like give in to the stress, that'll just perpetuate it for longer. But like the stress response is automatic. It's triggered by the autonomic nervous system. Which is why this is all connected and swirling in my brain and I keep like shutting up, but like this is an incredible conversation.
Yeah. I feel like you have a lot to say, Sarah, so I'm just giving you the field. Please
say your
thoughts.
Go
for it.
So I have a question and I'm wondering, okay, because we also see with a lot of ADHD and autistic people, hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And so I'm wondering if the gut issues and the EDS are related.
Because gastrointestinal permeability and the ability of that is not technically connected yet in the literature, but we have a lot of hypotheses there that hypermobility or HEDS can impact the gut. And it's really interesting. But sort of similar to this, we actually do research. We do see there was one study. I would love for it to be replicated. I think there was only one right now on collagen and ADHD, and collagen production was altered in the sample that they had, which obviously like that's connected to hypermobility as well, and it's just kind of interesting.
Yeah,
so there are like some of these genetic
that, like,
markers
they had,
and
the similar genetic like causes basically,
it's really interesting.
showing up in
And
the
like
brain
there's
and
the
the body.
ability to have like that knowledge, right? But then what can we do about it? So how do we help our gut?
Yes, how do we help our gut? What can we do since we're at such a disadvantage, I guess, for the lack of a better term?
That is where a lot of people will say, let's start with fiber. For me, I like to tell people, let's start with learning your body. Let's start improving our interoception and our nervous system. Because when we do that, then when we introduce fiber, it's not going to back us up as much, or it's not going to make it worse. For a lot of people, adding more fiber tends to make things worse for a little bit. That's where working with a registered dietitian, if you're in the States, is really, really helpful because they know a lot of this and they can help work with you through the difficulties. But learning how to improve that brain-body connection so that you can understand your signals better, so that you can not be as stressed. Even though it doesn't feel like you're stressed, your body's still stressed. Learning what your body's stress looks like. Easier said than done, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to listen to that.
It's like it's the thing that you know is the thing that you have to do, that you're like, I'm asking this question but I want like a different answer, but it's 100% true. And mindfulness, I think, is one way, and through a registered dietitian, figuring out the symptoms that you have, like you said, headache. For me, headache and getting easily irritable, I know that I'm getting hungry, then there's something there. Sarah, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention really quickly that if you have any specific diagnosis, like celiac disease or something like that, then you're gonna want to make sure that the doctor that you go to at least knows about that. Because there's definitely, I mean, I know that they all have like a general education, but also they have specialties. And so there's no guarantee that the dietitian you see is going to specialize in celiac disease, for example. Like when I was diagnosed with that, I, was given a list of what I could eat and what I couldn't eat. But I wasn't given any information on like how to heal all the damage that had happened to my intestinal tract in the past few years since my celiac turned on. Anyway.
Wow, that sounds really complicated for you.
It was really complicated, but I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to complain. I think
No, go for it, please.
That is literally your life.
Yeah, it was a shitty experience, but I know it's not a unique experience either. And so I'm just wondering, what information is out there for people on like healing their gut, I guess, like post-diagnosis, like that will depend on the diagnosis, right? Like whether it's celiac or IBS or.
Yeah, it really, really depends on the person, the diagnosis, their history. Like you have to take the whole person into account, which is also why I love, at least the dietitians I've talked to. I have a lot of friends in the dietetic space and they're so wonderful. If anyone needs a recommendation, can just email me. I have my email on my website. They can just go right in there. But yeah, healing the gut. I mean, that's such a, what's the word? Like,
it's like a super broad question.
Broad?
Yeah, it's also a thing on social media that people are kind of exploiting.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like pop science has taken over, and that's why it can be difficult to know what information is right and wrong. Which is why when I hopped on and I was like, heal your gut, like feel better, stop bloating. I was like, oh my gosh, there's a lot here, but it was all just people's blogs. There was nothing really unified resource that I could find.
And honestly,
that
the
was free.
Most important, like the thing that's the most consistent when we look at research about healing the gut, and quotation marks here, is consistency. Obviously, taking out anything that is actually inflaming you. So do not eat gluten products if you have celiac. That is, no matter how much consistency you're doing, if you're having that, your gut's not going to be good. But just being consistent with having how many meals you're eating. Ideally, for the majority of people, 3 meals a day. Having it consistent. I know that sounds really hard with ADHD.
Yeah, that's a thing. Yeah.
But when you say consistent, do you mean same times as well?
I do, actually. We want to train our system to predict. And within
we are basically
1 to 2 hours, ideally. So I have eating windows for myself. And that has been really crucial in not only helping my ADHD, but also helping my gut stuff. So background, I also have gut issues. Yay. That's kind of why I was interested in researching it. But I would have a lot of reflux. And I still do have a lot of reflux, but it's not as bad as it used to be, thankfully. And it really only flares up when I get very, very anxious. So, but consistency, eating 3 meals a day, eating windows. There we go. That was the path we were going. And that is something that I found is really helpful for most people with ADHD. If you struggle with eating consistently, don't tell yourself I'm going to eat at 8 a.m., 12 p.m., and 5 p.m. Tell yourself that I'm going to eat between 7 and 9, 11 and 1, and 5 to 7. Because then it gets rid of that perfectionism.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
The
which
fear of
is really important
failure.
here.
Yeah. Oh, I
And it also
didn't
gets rid of the
exactly this
rigidity.
time. Now I have to wait until the next time.
Yeah. Okay.
And even if you miss it, the goal is to eat something. I don't care what you're eating. Like, if the lunch break you're only having a cheese stick, sure, we'll get to a full meal. But you chose to eat something in that eating window. That's what we care about.
That's perfect. That is amazing, because these are things I didn't even expect would be part of the. I love talking to you because I feel so informed right now, and I feel like I can be in control of my body, and I hope people who are listening can feel that way too. So we talked about consistency. We talked about if you have a condition that prevents you from eating something like celiac disease, do not take that thing. Lactose intolerance, do not take that thing.
We also talked about being wary of some of the information that we find online. Specifically, like a trigger word that was like a red flag was healing your gut. You know, anyone can sort of say anyone can say that, but what does that mean? Just more of questioning the information that you're consuming. That's like our main thing here. But again, more on that misinformation, red dye.
Yeah.
I hear over and over again that with ADHD, hyperactivity can be improved by eliminating sugar and red dye.
And this happened accidentally. Like, we weren't supposed to even talk about this, but our mic check, I was like, red dye. And then you're like, and that's why we added it. Because I'm like, sorry, I had to interrupt because accidental.
Because I've always been skeptical of this research. And I don't know.
Yeah, it is really interesting. The reality is that the current research we have indicates that people with ADHD and the general population, specifically children, about 8% react and get more hyperactive with specific food dyes, and that is typically considered yellow 6 and red 40. Some research on red 3, not really though, but yeah, red 40 and yellow 6. The hard part here is that we don't have any research specifically on just red 40 and ADHD. We also, like I said, it's the whole population. Well, it's the same rate. So it's not that it's impacting kids with ADHD differently. It's that it's just affecting the general population. It doesn't matter if you have ADHD.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we see similar effects of food on like the thyroid and things like that. Like we're starting to see widespread effects.
So it is recommended to eliminate that from your diet.
It kind of depends on if you want to or not, honestly. Kind of comes down to that.
Choice. It sounds like you can try it, and if it makes you feel better, then keep doing it. And if it doesn't make you feel better, then don't torture yourself. That's kind of the whole thing with diets.
How can I identify that? How can I identify? Do I look for these labels that you just mentioned, or can they be tricky and write something else? With labels, it can be tricky.
It depends on where in the world you're living. So for the US, we have very, very strict labeling requirements. You have to label literally every single ingredient. In, say, Europe, you don't have to label every single ingredient, but they also have different labels for food dye names. So you have to be aware of that too. So, like a lot of people say, red dye 40 is not in Europe. It's illegal there, but it is legal. It's in a lot of foods there. It's just under a different name. And so,
Got it.
Yeah, it's one of, I think, my favorite fun facts is that the EU actually allows more artificial food dyes than the US.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, what's up with the propaganda then?
I think they don't want to acknowledge reality, and they also don't want to acknowledge the fact that they have a lot of health outcomes that are not due to these small itty bitty let's fix our health propaganda. And it's actually due to the fact that they have universal health care, they have walkable cities, they have more community spaces.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah. Of course, but you know, we just look at
speaking of Europe. Can I throw another misinformation question? As a celiac person, I hear a lot of anecdotal stories about going to Europe and Italy and having their pasta and their
Yes.
breads and not having any reaction. And I personally wouldn't try it, but why might that happen?
Yeah, definitely. If you have celiac,
Don't
not
do that.
fall for that. It is still gluten. Your gut will still react to it.
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
and by the way, when the gut reacts to the thing that it's not supposed to have, it starts like breaking apart. Like holes start happening, and like that's
Yes,
where
we
we
do
get
not
like
want that.
stuff that in the wrong places, and like nobody wants that. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Fake news.
That is a really good question, though, about why. There are two reasons. I'm going to go to the second one, and as somebody who knows the whole differences in wheat grain will be better equipped to answer. There are a few different, actually, let me just start with that one. There are a few different strains that Europe tends to use because they're not going to import our stuff as much if they can grow it, right? So
That's
they
true.
have a different strain that affects people's guts a little bit differently than the strain that we tend to use. It's not that it's better or worse, it's just different. And the other one is obviously the stress. Like if you're going to Europe, you probably are spending like time in the sun, you're walking, you are on vacation probably, so you're less stressed. And so your gut is able to process these things because it's in a state where it can digest better. And so like when you're back in the States, you're back in your stress state. And so wow, that was a lot of states right there.
And this was such an interesting conversation. I can't believe 50 minutes have passed. I just want to ask one more thing. We talked about consistency. We talked about learning our cues, and after that, maybe introducing fiber. What else would you give, like one last tip for people with ADHD?
Honestly, so if you can get consistent, that's a great first step, right? That is the baseline. If you are struggling really hard, your baseline is still that. It's just whatever you can eat during that time. But if you're feeling like you can handle more, if your executive functioning is a little bit better that day, then we can introduce what I call the ADHD plate. And what this is, you can learn more on my Instagram. I have a pinned post so you can take a look at real pictures so you can understand what I'm trying to say here. But half of your plate, fruits and vegetables, whenever possible, right? And then a third of the other half, see, this is where it gets complicated, is going to be any other fibers. So nuts, seeds, resistant starches. So those are cooled down, like grains, like rice. So if you have rice, cool it down just a bit. That's going to help feed your gut microbiome. Obviously, the fruits and vegetables will. The fruits and vegetables are more just because they have a lot of nutrients. They have a lot of antioxidants, especially if you go for those darker colored ones. And then the last 2/3 of the second side is protein.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to make this just way easier, 1/2 of your plate fiber, 1/2 of your plate protein. That is a little bit easier. So say you are going to have breakfast. For easy sake, half of your plate is Greek yogurt, half of your plate is frozen blueberries, and that's your breakfast, just for easy sake.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other
anything
half
else
is
extra.
hydration. Yeah. The goal is just to see how much fiber you can add, how much plants. Maybe that's a better word for this because a lot of people, when you hear fiber, it's kind of confusing, but plants.
Metamucil.
So the goal, can you eat a lot of different plants today? Coffee technically counts as a plant. It's from a bean. So there you go. If you have a glass of coffee, that counts as a plant. If you like to have, so what I do a lot of the times in the morning to get my protein and my fiber is I will do a shake or smoothie. I don't know what you would actually call it, but I do Greek yogurt and some chia seed. Sometimes I'll do flaxseed instead. And then blueberries and, oh, no, that's a different one. I don't have blueberries in this one. I'll have cocoa powder in this one, and because I love cocoa powder. And I'll usually do almond butter and some maple syrup and then some soy milk because I like soy milk. And that whole thing is, I mean, it's not a lot of plants, but it's 4 plants because the cocoa powder, almonds, soy, and then also chia seed. So, oh, also maple syrup is not technically, I mean, it's kind of a plant, but it has antioxidants in it. That's a good thing.
Call it the bougie breakfast, and then you'll do it every day.
So what I always recommend people do is purchase my bundle called the ADHD Nutrition Manual. It goes through exactly what we are talking about today. It teaches you how to develop interoception, how to do your nervous system, and both of those through an ADHD lens. So it's not the neurotypical way of improving these. It's how do you actually do it if you have ADHD. And then the last half is what can we do to help your ADHD through nutrition science. So that's where we go through how to create your plate, how to tell when you are in a state of needing more resources or when you are at a state of, wow, I can't handle anything. It also tells you what different nutrients to focus on that are the most helpful for ADHD, where to get that. And then it tells you, so those are that side. And then I also have a lot of additional resources in that bundle, an example menu so that you don't have to think. And then also a grocery list planner that's made for ADHD brains so that, again, you don't have to think.
And what is your website?
Yeah, it's NutrimindLab.com.
Awesome. That's super easy.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
I love it.
thank you for having me.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't care if people reach out often. Just to let you guys know that.
I love
because
that.
I'm just bad at it. And I
Yeah.
do not get annoyed when other people do, so.
Usually when that happens, I'll like come across a message that I forgot to send them. So I'll just press send and then it's like, oh,
Yeah.
Sarah was looking out.
Yeah, in my email, I have a little note that says, please feel free to email me multiple times or something like this. This is the best way to accommodate my ADHD, and I do not get annoyed at it.
Yeah, that is so nice.
Thanks for being here. If you want to connect with the Neurodivergent Report, you can find us at ND Report Pod on Instagram, Threads, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky, Substack, etc.
If you're looking to support the show, the best thing you can do is subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. Please do that.
And hey, if you want to check out more about us, visit our website at ndreportpod.com. And you can also go there if you want to be a guest contributor on the show.
Until next time, be well, do good.